Today we're going to be going over steep turns. I just passed my CFI check ride on Thursday, July 3rd, and I'm so grateful that it's over and just so glad that I have it finally, because I've been looking forward to teaching for a while now. I actually enjoy teaching a lot, which is why I enjoy doing my YouTube and my Instagram, my TikTok as well. If you don't follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is flyaddison with 2 N's. And my TikTok is addison.pilot. I post like teaching content on there and just like flying content, stuff like that. But I asked on my Instagram if y'all wanted to see any maneuvers in particular taught on my YouTube. And I got a whole list of different maneuvers, but I picked the ones that were mentioned the most to do first. So steep turns is one of the ones that was highly recommended, so I'm going to do that today. And I'm going to be posting 3 times a week doing maneuvers. I'm going to do like a little maneuver series. So yeah, let's get into steep turns. With any maneuver, you should know the what, why, and how. I made the mistake of going through my whole training without knowing the what, why, and how of each maneuver, and then I had to learn it on my CFI. Not only was it a lot of information to learn, but it helped me to learn and understand the maneuver and why we do it, and then why we're being taught it. I just think that it's really important that you teach your students the what, why, and how, so that they can just get a grasp on all of that from the very beginning. So what is a steep turn? It's 2 opposing 360-degree turns at a steep bank. Okay, so 2 opposing 360-degree turns without altitude loss at a steep bank. So the reason why this is challenging and why it is a maneuver is because of the steep bank. So we were just doing 2 opposing 360-degree turns, which if you don't understand this, it means we're just doing a 360-degree turn to the left, and then we're gonna stop, do one to the right. Then it would be a fairly simple maneuver if we were just doing it at a 20-degree bank. But since we do it at such a steep bank, that is why it's more challenging to do, because we're gonna lose a lot of altitude. So we're gonna have to add control inputs so that we don't lose that altitude and complete the 360-degree turn. So now we get into the why we're doing it. So my first why for every maneuver is if it were to happen in real life. So, I mean, anything could happen in real life when we're flying, especially because things come out of nowhere, things happen unexpectedly. So it's always important that we're putting ourselves in situations that are more challenging than what we can handle, so that we can learn how to control the airplane efficiently. And then if we ever ran into something like this in real life, then we would be able to handle it. So let's say that so I'm just gonna put real life situation. All right, another why is it teaches control and coordination of the aircraft in different attitudes that we're not normally exposed to, and also division of attention. Division of attention, because this maneuver, you should be looking outside most of the time and looking at how your nose is moving through the horizon, to be able to tell, when you're gaining altitude, losing altitude. It's also a sensation in your body, so you're gonna feel when you're like descending at such a steep bank, you're gonna feel it, and then when you're like climbing, you're gonna feel lighter. So you'll also be able to feel with your body. So between looking outside, the sensations in your body, and then also cross-checking with your instruments, you should be able to keep the plane from climbing or descending too much. Okay, there's 2 things that are taught through steep turns. So you're going to learn these things on the ground most likely, and then you're going to go up and do them in steep turns, and then you'll feel the effects of them. So the first one is horizontal lift and vertical lift. So our vertical lift is what moves upward. So that's what allows us to climb, stay in the air. Whenever we bank the airplane, Then we also have some horizontal lift. So let's say this is like a 20-degree bank right here. So we have a lot of vertical lift still, but we have a little bit of that lift contributing to the 20 degree. So we're gonna have to pull a little bit of back pressure to make up for what's being lost here and being contributed over here. But we won't have to pull too much. Now let's say we're banking 55 degrees for a commercial steep turn. So commercial is 55 and a private steep turn is 45. So let's say we're banking 55. Now all of a sudden, since we're banking so much, we're gonna have a lot of horizontal lift, which means that our vertical lift is gonna go down because it's getting contributed to the horizontal lift. So this is vertical lift and this is horizontal lift. So we're gonna experience this in the plane when we do the steep turn. And what's gonna happen is when we go put that bank in, one, we're gonna bump up our power a little bit to help with that altitude loss. But two, if we were to add no back pressure with our yoke, the plane would just literally go into a steep spiral most likely. So the nose would go down, we'd be banking super steep, and we'd just be losing a ton of altitude. The goal is to not lose any altitude, so to counteract the lift that we're losing here, I'm gonna put counteract loss of lift. We add power and back pressure. Honestly, getting into the maneuver is the hardest part to figure out, what power input to put in and then how much back pressure to pull, because you don't want to pull too much and then start gaining altitude. But once you find that sweet spot and you are able to hold that throughout the steep turn, it's fairly easy. So that's one thing that we're taught. And then also another thing that's taught through steep turns is the over banking tendency. So overbanking tendency isn't really a factor in a 20-degree bank turn. The reason is because the difference in the two wings isn't as drastic as a 55-degree bank. So when we're in a 55-degree bank turn, don't judge my airplane, but this is our wings. So this is our high wing, this is our low wing. So this wing is producing more thrust and more lift. The reason it's producing more thrust and more lift is because these wings are making a turn. So they're making this turn. They're completing this turn in the same time. So when you finish a turn, one wing's not finishing the turn before the other. So they're finishing in the same time, but this wing on the outside that's higher is covering more ground because it's on the outside. So this wing more distance and this one is less distance. Same time, but this one's covering more distance, which means it has to be moving faster. Moving faster, producing more thrust, more lift. This one's moving slower because it doesn't have to travel as far, but it's gonna finish the turn in the same amount of time. So whenever this wing up here is producing more thrust and more lift, it's going to want to overbank. So it's going to want to continue to move in this direction and keep banking the plane. In a 20-degree bank turn, this outside wing is not traveling that much further of a distance, so it doesn't have to move as fast and produce as much thrust and lift as in a steep bank turn, which is why it doesn't cause us to overbank a lot. So we have to counteract our overbank. And to do this, you're just going to put in control inputs with your yoke. So throughout the whole maneuver, since you're focusing outside, you're also focusing on your instruments. If you see that your bank is going a little bit past 45 or 55, whatever you're aiming for, then you should just, use your yoke to take out a little bit of that bank and control the aircraft. And also just make sure that you're using your rudders correctly. Make sure you're not cross-controlling the aircraft, meaning like using your opposite rudder a lot and then banking a lot in the other direction. So yeah, that is the what, why, and now we're gonna get into the how, which is fairly simple with steep turns. Now this is the how. So always do your pre-maneuver checklist. So clearing turns, radio calls, altitude, airspeed, and configuration. So altitude and airspeed for this maneuver used to be below maneuvering speed. And then you should also have your altitude bugged. So I pick an altitude that's easy to look at the altimeter and notice. So like 3,000, 3,500. Don't pick like 3,350 because it's going to be difficult to know whether you're maintaining that altitude or not. So our altitude is bug, our airspeed is below VA. And then we're also going to want to pick a reference point. So we're going to look out the distance, find something that sticks out to us that we can easily pick out. And then once we're flying at that reference point, we're going to bug our heading. So how everyone's going to teach it differently, but how I like to get into the maneuver that helps me to not gain altitude and to not lose altitude too quickly is to bank 30 degrees first. Then you're going to add power. So my cruise power on my plane is about 2350 RPMs. So I'm going to bump it up to about 2450 RPMs. The reason why I bank first and then add my power is because if I'm still straight and level and I add that power, then I find that when I get into the maneuver, I'm already gaining altitude and then I have to correct for that. If I bank and then add this power, these two are kind of canceling each other out. So the bank, adding the power causes us to not lose too much altitude with this bank, and I'm not really having to like pull too much back pressure yet. Then I continue to bank to, let's do it to commercial standards. I continue to bank to 55 degrees. As you're banking to 55, you're gonna have to start applying some back pressure, because as that bank really steepens, we're gonna start to lose a lot of lift. So bank 30, add your power, and then as you're adding power, continue to bank 55 and then hold back pressure. I like to hold back pressure to around +5 degrees on my attitude indicator, especially in the summertime because your performance is worse. So I just go ahead and pitch for that point, that +5. In the winter, I usually pitch for like +2.5, but you're pitching there and then you're just gonna wait to see what the plane wants to do. So now you're in this turn, you're holding that 55 degrees of bank, you're making sure the plane's not over banking, you're looking outside at your horizon, you're cross-checking with your instruments, and maybe when you cross-check with your instruments, it shows that you are still climbing. Then maybe pitch down to +4 on your attitude indicator, and then see if that holds the plane where you want it. Once you find that sweet spot, then you're just holding that bank in, holding that pitch where you want it the whole turn. If you look at your at vertical speed indicator and it's showing that we're descending, then maybe you need to pitch to +6. I just like to pick one reference point on the attitude indicator, so +5, put the nose there, and then don't do anything until you notice that's not working. Because not having something to pitch for or a number in specific, you're gonna end up banking and you're gonna end up just pulling back pressure, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be climbing. So then you're gonna pitch the nose down, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be descending. And then you're just gonna go like that the whole time, and it's gonna be really chaotic. So just pitch at like a number that you think is gonna work, and then adjust from there. So yeah, now we're just holding for 360 degrees. And while we're doing this 360-degree turn, always looking outside, cross-checking with your instruments. And then when we see our reference point coming up outside, we should look back in the cockpit and look at our heading indicator. When it's 10 degrees away from our heading bug is when we're gonna roll our wings level. If we wait until we get on our heading bug to roll our wings level, we're gonna end up overshooting our heading bug, because when we roll our wings level, we don't automatically go straight and level. It takes a second for them to go level and then for the plane to actually stop swinging in that direction. So we should do it a little bit ahead of time, roll the wings level. That should stop us right on the heading bug. Then, since we have that extra power in, and since we are probably pulling back pressure, the plane is going to want to balloon when we go to straight and level. So we're going to need to push the yoke a little bit forward, and then we're just going to pull our power back to 2350, which is our normal cruise speed, so that we don't gain altitude on the back end of the maneuver. Then, since it's 2 turns opposing each other, now we have to do one to the right if you just did one to the left. So once you're back in straight and level, immediately you're jumping back into the right side. So banking 30 degrees, adding power to 2450, continue banking to 55 degrees, hold back pressure to that +5 on attitude indicator. Look outside, cross-check with your instruments as you complete the 360-degree turn. Then as you're 10 degrees away from your heading bug, roll your wings level, a little bit of forward pressure, pull your power back to cruise, and then get back into straight and level flight. So yeah, that is steep turns, fairly simple. Gonna be posting on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on here for maneuvers. And then I'm gonna try to get into a normal schedule of posting like 1 day a week, but I just wanna like really get through these maneuvers since they're fresh in my brain from CFI check ride. But like this video, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you wanna see some more maneuvers.